Well, been doing a lot of thinking lately. A lot of us have, because we've got a lot of time to sit around and think as we go through this quarantining process. I've been spending a lot more time at home than I might otherwise. I have foregone numerous visits to local restaurants or bars, which are still open in many cases, strangely enough, here in Tucson, Arizona. Although many are not. I have even been getting my groceries delivered, if you can believe that. Saving me, I've probably done it about 6 or 7 or 8 times now. Just order my groceries up online and they ship it right to my door. And there's many people happy to make such deliveries, considering how many jobs have been destroyed by all of this coronavirus bullshit. So I've been thinking back to my checkered career as a fiddler in an array of different bands. Bluegrass, old time, blues, roots music, one type or one stripe or another. It's been a very interesting 40 years or so, if I may say so. But back in about the mid-70s or so, I found out about a couple of fellers that had hailed originally from northern Arkansas in the Ozark region of northern Arkansas. The Ozarks are most often associated with southern Missouri. However, the Ozark Plateau, as it's called, extends into northern Arkansas. And it's an extremely ancient, uplifted plateau, geologically speaking. There are rocks, some of the oldest rocks in the entire country exist within the Ozarks, exposed rocks. Something on the order, if I remember right, over 2 to 3 billion years old. I may have that number wrong. However, it's an ancient region, but basically, when you're hanging down in the Ozarks, it's a lot of hills and valleys, a lot of extensive forest, a lot of creeks, a lot of streams and rivers, and a lot of music, one kind or another. But in northern Arkansas, back in the, I guess it'd be the 20s, 30s, 40s, we saw the emergence of a couple of fellers that would pursue their destiny to become bluegrass stars. However, most of their stardom or recognition occurred out in California, strangely enough. Ray Park and Vern Williams, both from northern Arkansas, ended up in California, I think as early as the 1950s, possibly even as early as the 40s. And they pursued various kinds of work. Believe that the both of them lived in or around the city of Stockton, California. And if I remember right, Stockton is not far from the Bay Area, or perhaps is part of the Bay Area. near Oakland, perhaps. Vern Williams and Ray Park, Vern and Ray, as they became known as. They started recording in the 50s, early 50s, under the nomenclature of Vern and Ray and the Carroll County Boys, or something like that, as I recall. They employed a superfine banjo player, Herb Peterson. I believe let's see, at one point, I'm trying to remember who their bass player was. But in any case, they were top flight bluegrass pickers. Great vocals. And I'm remembering a song in particular that I learned back in the 70s off of their LP, which was called Vern and Ray, Sounds of the Ozarks. I believe this record came out in about 1974. However, they had long since moved away from Arkansas. But they still remembered their Ozark roots. And there's a bunch of great songs on that particular LP. But one that really stood out to me personally was one that apparently was inspired by, probably actually inspired by the hippie movement. In other words, the whole West Coast hippie thing that was going so strong back in the late 60s and into the early 70s was actually raising the environmental consciousness of a lot of folks. Kind of the beginnings of the environmental movement, as you might say. You know, a protect of the environment kind of consciousness. And what's interesting about this one particular song and why it caught my attention was it's one of the first, if not the only song in the bluegrass genre that had anything whatsoever to do with protecting the environment. The song is called To Hell with the Land. To Hell with the Land. I'm going to attempt it here, and then I may have a few other stories to share afterwards. Listen, my brother, this world's gonna fall. It's hard to believe no one cares at all. We just make our dollars any way that we can. To hell with the people, to hell with the land. Can this whole world be saved? Have we gone too far, or is it too late? Have we reached the point of no return? Lord, what will it take? Will we ever learn? Our cities are bigger than ever before, and there's not enough air to go around anymore. But what are we doing to help ease the pain? We're building more cars and bigger airplanes. Can this whole world be saved? Have we gone too far, or is it too late? Have we reached the point of no return? Lord, what will it take? Will we ever learn? a sawmill stops burning and the smoke clears away. But the big trees keep falling day after day. Oh, help me, my brother, oh, why can't they see? They're destroying the source of the air that we breathe. Can this whole world be saved? Have we gone too far, or is it too late? Have we reached the point of no return? Lord, what will it take? Will we ever learn? I went up on a mountain. What did I see? A poisonous chemtrail hanging high over me. To stop global warming, they would have us believe. But they're lying to you, and they're lying to me. Can this whole world be saved? Have we gone too far, or is it too late? Have we reached the point of no return? Lord, what will it take? Will we ever learn? Can this whole world be saved? Have we gone too far, or is it too late? We reached the point of no return. Lord, what will it take? Will we ever learn? Lord, what will it take? Will we ever learn? To Hell with the Land by Vern and Ray. So, when I finished up right in the middle of the 1970s in Columbia, Missouri, and was ready to get the hell out of there, I moved to Tucson, Arizona with my girlfriend at the time. And I encountered a band called Summerdog in Tucson. Summerdog Bluegrass Experience and Mariachi Swing Ensemble. And what a band. What a band. I feel so fortunate to have been in the right place at the right time to hear that band. A 6-piece bluegrass band. Blew my mind. Absolutely blew my mind. I'd been playing in a band in central Missouri for 3 years and had a hell of a lot of fun with that bunch of fellers. But I mean to tell you now, brother, this band in Tucson, Summerdog Band, it was unlike anything I'd ever heard. Not the least of which was for the reason that they sang songs in Spanish. They did several Mexican norteña type songs with a 2 and 3 part harmony sung entirely in Spanish. Never heard anything like it coming from a bunch of white guys. Chip Curry, the band leader and banjo player. Dave Luco, the flat top guitar player. Dobro player, I believe, was Ron Doring. Bass player extraordinaire, Edwin Davenport. Mandolin player was the famous Tommy Rosem, who has played with Laurie Lewis on the West Coast. Of course, all over the world, but he lives on the West Coast in Berkeley. He's Laurie Lewis's partner. They live together and have for decades. And then I believe the fiddle player was Peter Rowland, Dr. Peter Rowland, who lives now in Phoenix, Arizona, and has for a long time. What a band. When my girlfriend and I first moved to Tucson, we lived in an Airstream trailer out behind a funky house in between a couple of houses full of a combination of bikers and hippies. We lived in this Airstream trailer for about a month, but we were looking for jobs, and much to our amazement, we found an ad for a couple. They were looking to hire a couple to work as a cook and waitress at the Santa Rita Lodge, which was down in Madeira Canyon, about an hour drive south of Tucson. So we went down there and we applied for the job, and of course we got the gig. We were hired. So in virtually no time at all, we found ourselves moving down to Madeira Canyon. And what was also very amazing about that gig was they gave us this beautiful cabin to actually live in, rent-free. It was part of our pay. Of course, the pay was relatively low, but it was so amazing living up in the canyon there. The lodge itself was probably somewhere right around 6,000 feet in elevation, up in the Arizona Oaks, and just about where the pines start, right on a beautiful creek where there were cottonwoods and sycamores growing in abundance. It was a magical time that lasted a couple of years. But on Sunday nights, we would drive all the way from Madeira Canyon up to Tucson because we wanted to hear the Summerdog band that I was just mentioning. They used to play. Summerdog had a regular Sunday night gig at a bar called the Oxbow on North First Avenue in Tucson. And we'd make that long drive up to Tucson, and I'd take a fiddle along with me and almost always sit in with them and play one or two fiddle pieces with the band, and that's how I got to know all those fellers and started some lifelong friendships that continue absolutely up to this present day, 40 years later. Over 40 years, 45 years later. Tommy Rosem and Chip Curry are among the closest friends I have on this planet. And Ed Davenport, a good friend of mine, still lives to this day here in Tucson. Love them all so much. Dear, dear friends of mine. So, as fate would have it, that version of the Summerdog band eventually disbanded. And I think a year went by or so, and then Chip Curry decided to reform the band. So he started putting out feelers for musicians who might be interested. Of course, I was all over it, man. I was all over it. Chip actually called me personally, asked me if I'd be interested in joining up with him and creating another version of Summerdog. And it took me about approximately a half a second to respond in the affirmative. So we formed a band. It was Ron Doring on guitar, who had been previously playing dobro in the previous version of Summerdog. Of course, Chip continued to play the banjo, and I played the fiddle. And we scared up a bass player who was hanging around Tucson at the time by the name of Dennis Lee. Fantastic bass player. Great bluegrass singer. And an all-around amazing feller. He lives over on the East Coast, somewhere in the D.C. area, if I'm not mistaken, and has lived over there for, close to the last 40 years since he left this area here. I remember our first gig when we, got a couple of good strong sets of material together. We landed a gig at a music festival over in El Paso, Texas, at what is called the El Chamizal National Monument. Great music festival. There were some super fine bands there. Quite a lineup of different bands at that. I remember the Louisiana Aces with D.L. Menard from Louisiana, Cajun. The Boys of the Loch from the British Isles, Ireland, etc. There was some kind of a jug band there. I forget exactly what they were called. Of course, we were, hired there. And there were quite a few other groups there. It was just a fantastic festival. 1978, if I remember right. I do remember that the first original version of the Summerdog band played a good strong handful of Vern and Ray songs. I believe they did one called Last Old Shovel. They didn't do To Hell with the Land, because that was just not one of the more popular pieces from Vern and Ray. Can't remember. Let's see, there were several other really strong vocal numbers that they did from Vern and Ray. Vern and Ray. I remember when, after I had been playing with the Summerdog band in the late 70s for a year or so, we booked some tours up through California, eventually all the way to Seattle. And we were playing in some small towns, some clubs and bars around some small towns in the foothills of the Sierras. Towns like Angels Camp, Twain Hart, and towns like that. I believe we played up in Chico, California also on one of those trips. The little concert club where we played in I believe it was Angels Camp, was a little basement joint. You had to walk down a stairwell on the outside of this building, and you go into the basement, and there was a little concert club, a little raised stage at one end, and a long bar on one side of the room. Nice bar stand with nice polished wood, and high bar stools. Very, very comfortable place, actually. Very, very comfortable. And we found out that Doug Dillard of the Dillards band, which was a band that hailed from the Salem, Missouri area back in the 60s. Doug Dillard had a band he was gigging with. Of course, Doug Dillard was good friends with the Vern and Ray band, and they had already done a couple of records together, if I'm not mistaken. Doug Dillard and Ray Park, the fiddler for Vern and Ray. He's the Ray of the Vern and Ray name. Ray Park, fantastic fiddle player. and Doug Dillard and a stellar backup band of the bluegrass pickers, on bass and banjo and guitar and so forth, mandolin player. They were playing in this little basement concert club. So one of the Summerdog boys, and myself, John Ross, and we decided to go to that show, and we just had a marvelous time, hooting and hollering after every solo. It was just a really great band. They were all great pickers. When the whole show was over, Doug Dillard, who, by the way, had the most incredible stage presence, he was the banjo picker in the Dillards, and he was not a super highly technical player. He was just a straight ahead, rock solid picker. Nothing fancy, but really rock solid. And he had such a great stage presence. His face was like made out of some kind of stretchy rubber. When he smiled, he had these perfect, gigantic teeth, and his smile would literally go almost ear to ear. It almost didn't look real. What a face and what a stage presence. He was just filled with joy. It was infectious. We just were going crazy because he was so fantastic on stage. When the show was all over, John and I went over to the bar, sat down at the bar to get a nightcap, and it seemed like all the rest of the band had already gone out the door. But there was Doug Dillard had kind of, made his way to the bar, a couple chairs down from me, and ordered a beer. And next thing I know, he pulls out a big fat spliff, otherwise known as a marijuana joint, and he lit it up right there at the bar. Now, back in those days, that was a pretty bold thing to do, considering the prevailing consciousness of folks. But of course, it was California and it was the West Coast. But still, even having said that, that was a highly illegal thing to do, which was to light up a joint in a public place like that. But we didn't give a shit. We were actually kind of amazed and impressed that he so casually did such a thing. So I lit up the joint and smoked it for 20 seconds and then just handed it down to me. So John and I and Doug Dillard smoked this entire joint and had a nice little chat and a couple of laughs at the bar there. It was great. That was a wonderful night, just a wonderful night. And that Ray Park on the fiddle, he just ripped me a new one. I'll never forget it. One of the greatest fiddlers I've ever seen live. I tell you, if I could just itemize all the great fiddle players that I have seen down through all these years, there's more of them than I can even remember or even count. They've taught me so much. I've learned so much from hanging out with them, watching them. It has been a grand experience ever since I bought my first fiddle at that yard sale for $5 so long ago. It's been a grand experience playing the old fiddle. I quite frankly have no idea what my life would have turned out to be if I hadn't learned to play the goddamn fiddle. I can't imagine the horrors that would have awaited me had I never learned to play the fiddle. I would have ended up in some kind of square existence as doing some kind of a desk job at an accounting firm or just some horrible square banal kind of existence. But I don't know how much time we've got left here. I know this video is getting pretty long. Let's double check and see where we're at here on the counter. Yeah, I probably should wrap it up. I just love, here again, a lot of us are spending a lot of time at home these days, what with all this coronavirus bull crap going on. It's given us a space to play some music and reflect and try to stay connected to our friends and loved ones across the world and across the country. But it's been an interesting life, I must say. And after I die, I'm ready for another one. Namaste, folks. Namaste.